Good day to you, beloved of God. Welcome again to this podcast. We will immediately continue our series called Does the Snatching Away Happen Soon? And we were now at the section where I'm refuting this teaching on that there will be a so-called pre-millennium kingdom on earth. This was the last slide we went through, and this is a slide with the statement of this teaching that says that David will be resurrected after 7 weeks or 50 years into the PMK. That's what they say. And he is most likely the Messiah governor referred to in Daniel 9:25. And I say no. And I was already in the previous video making my point, and I'm not finished yet because I have some points to make after this one with regard to the same statement. So let's continue. I already made my point here, right? Just to summarize, if cut off is the same as dethroned, well, what trick will the Antichrist use, the AC use, to make David, how do you say that, quit his throne, so to speak, or make the people of Israel quit David? What will he do? Or suppose the AC promises peace to Israel, then it means that if they would accept it, then it means that they had no a real peace under David. So it is not logical, doesn't work. So let's continue. Also, regarding the same statement, apparently, that's what I understood also, apparently the 12 apostles will be raised as well in the same time in the PMK, also glorified, I would say, and glorified body, to rule over the 12 tribes, pursuant to Matthew 19 verse 28. What will happen to them when the AC appears on the scene, the leader, the end times leader? What will happen to them? This argument doesn't hold either, in my opinion. So let's see what is written. And this is, I think, the last one regarding this statement. And this is also the last statement I'm going through. It is written in Daniel 9:25, from the going forth of the word, the decree, to cause a return and to rebuild Jerusalem, from then until Messiah, the governor of king, is 7 sevens and 62 sevens. You got it. So, when it says, from the going forth of the word, the decree, until Messiah, the governor, this period is 7 weeks or 7 sevens and 62 sevens. So, this period is 69 sevens. The first sevens are about the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the actual rebuilding. And remember, in the previous video, I already reminded you that it also said that these 7 sevens will be in the constraint of times. So there will be trouble. And indeed, if you read Ezra and Nehemiah, if you read them, you will see that there was indeed trouble, constraint of times in this period of 49-50 years while trying to rebuild Jerusalem. A lot of problems. So it already came to pass. And then after that, the next 62 sevens run on, and then they automatically come out at the anointing of Jesus as Messiah and thus King, or governor if you want, doesn't matter, or prince if you want. Messiah means anointed one, and to what is he anointed? To king, to be king. And that happened in 26 AD. When did the word, the going forth of the word, was by King Cyrus? That was in 466 BC. And if you add these two numbers up, then you will come to a total of 492 years. 492 years. So save 1 week and 1 Jubilee year. Then it makes exactly 500 years, including the Jubilee years. So it's quite clear. And it's specifically already happened because the period of 492 years really ended with the anointing of Jesus as Messiah and thus King. So let's consider another factor here, another aspect. And I already mentioned it briefly previously. If such a PMK is going to last at least 500 years, my question is then, to which eon should it belong? I mean, there are 5 eons, right? That's also a logical number. 5. So there are 5 eons. This is not its own eon. So if it is to be placed in this current wicked eon, I think it doesn't fit, right? Times of refreshing, blessings from heaven. It doesn't fit a wicked eon. Then it should be the next eon. But that's 1,000 years already. That's the Millennium Kingdom. And it, of course, not longer than 1,000 years. So where does it fit? Please tell me. So let me read. It fits neither. This present wicked eon it would be extremely strange and illogical that such worldwide blessings for Israel and from Israel to the world would be considered as evil or wicked. And also the next 4th eon, the Millennium Kingdom eon, is not possible because that will last exactly 1,000 years and not longer. So let's come to the conclusion of C1. Will there be a PMK? No. Don't expect a PMK. God is easily able to change the hearts of his people from stone into flesh in an instant. And that will happen at the second plus of the plus 70 plus period, when Jesus returns on earth and he will get into judgment in the valley with his people, in the valley of Jehoshaphat, when his people are dispatched by angels from all the ends of the earth. He will then give them a heart of flesh and write his laws on it. It's easy for God, so it will not happen in a long period, not at all. This, I already mentioned it. I didn't even watch. This will happen when Jesus returns. He will use his messengers to gather his people from the ends of the earth. Then he will enter into judgment with them in the valley of decisions, or the valley of Jehoshaphat. There their hearts will be changed. He will give them a heart to know him. It will be very quickly. At the end, it will happen at the end approximately of this 3rd eon. Then they will be ready for their role in the MK. The next event on God's program is therefore not the PMK, as is said by this teaching, but it is the snatching away, aka rapture. Immediately after that, the snatching away, the day of the Lord will start, in which also after a while the 70th week will commence, which will end in the return of Jesus with great power and glory, and his presence, after his presence, at his presence on earth, including various events that will happen after that. And I mentioned it already. One of them is getting into judgment with his people. So I hope this is clear. Okay. Now we will go to the central or pivotal slide again. We already went through A, B 1, 2, 3 and C1. And now we are entered at C2. Are the 70 weeks of Daniel still future, and thus did we believe wrongly? Is the question. Let's go into that now. First of all, we have to mention and establish this. If you look at this very well-known prophecy, you will see that it is about a period of 77s, which is considered as one whole period consisting of 77s. So it is not how do you say that? It's not plural but singular. So this period is 77s and it is one period. Remember that, because we will come back to that. And what will be the result of these 77s for Israel and Jerusalem? What will be at the end of these 77s? What will be the results? Let's count. Let's look at them. 6 of them. To detain transgression, to make sin come to an end, to make a propitiatory shelter for depravity, to bring the righteousness of the eons, to seal the vision and the prophetic word, to anoint the Holy of Holies. These are the 6, I would say, aspects of the result that will be accomplished at the end of the 70 weeks or 7s. So now I will again go through to a statement of this teaching, the PMK teaching, and I already mentioned it. I'm just repeating it. The length of the PMK is estimated to be 500 to 800 years, 500 to 800. The premise here is that all 70 weeks in Daniel 9 verse 24 through 27 are still in the future. My viewpoint, it is not correct. In reality, 69 weeks already passed, which began with the decree of Cyrus in 466 BC for the return of the Israelites to Jerusalem and the rebuilding of both city and temple, pursuant to the prophecy in Isaiah 44 verse 24 through chapter 45 verse 13. Especially look at chapter 44 verse 28. These 69 sevens or weeks ended exactly at the anointing of Jesus after his baptism in the Jordan. He was anointed to be Messiah, the King. So the 70th week is now the question. What is the case with the 70th week? I call it. Well, let me mention it here first. These 70 weeks, the last week, the 70th 7, was already to be happening. Let me put it like that. In the past. However, retrospectively, it turned out not to be the definitive 70th week. So I call that week that would be the 70th week, I call that the would-be 70th week. That's why I call it like this, the would-be 70th week. I will also, of course, explain why I mention it like that. It already began in the past at the start of Jesus' ministry, because that would be the 70th week. Remember, I said that prophecy was one whole period of 77s. So one fixed period. So that 70th week it really started at the beginning of Jesus' ministry when he was going into the wilderness. However, from the beginning of his ministry on, he was not accepted by Israel, especially not by the religious leadership. At the half point of this week, but the prophecy in Daniel said after the 69th week. After the 69 weeks. After that, Messiah would be cut off. That is what the prophecy said. So at the halfway point of this very would-be week, Jesus the Messiah died. At the end of this would-be 70th week, Stephen died by stoning. But, I already mentioned it, what did he see just before his death? The heavens opened, the glory of God, and Jesus, the Son of Man, standing, not sitting, standing at God's right hand. Oh, that is very important. Why? Stephen, among other things, saw Jesus standing at God's right hand. Why is this so important? Because this standing is the proof that Jesus would have come back at that time. In short, that week would have been the 70th week. If Israel had accepted her Messiah, that week would have been the 70th week. Why? I believe there was exactly 7 years between the start of Jesus' ministry, 3.5 years. Then he died, another 3.5 years. Then Stephen was stoned. Exactly 7 years. That would have been the 70th week. That's why God showed Stephen that vision. Of course. Otherwise, God, what was the use of that vision? What is the advantage of receiving such a vision? God is structured, remember? God is functional. Always. So that's why Stephen, especially Stephen, his name means crown. Yeah, his name means crown. Can you imagine? The crown was stoned, as a consequence of which the kingdom did not come anymore. But the consequence was that whole period. Let's read. The coming back of Jesus did not happen retrospectively. We've seen that before because of that vision. Why did it not happen? Because his people had not accepted him as Messiah, both during his ministry on earth and during the ministry afterwards of the 12 apostles under the leadership of Peter, who had the keys to the kingdom, remember? The coming of the MK had a condition. and that is acceptance by the whole people of Israel of Jesus as her Messiah, and that did not happen. So this is huge. Okay. So let's continue with my thinking, with my viewpoint. So the aforementioned six aspects will be the result at the end of the definitive final 70th week of Daniel, which still is in the future, obviously. If this is true, and it is, then transgression, sin, depravity are still present in the 70th week when it will run its course. And the righteousness of the eons, the sealing of the visions, and the prophetic word, the anointing of the Holy of Holies, are then not yet present during the 70th week when it is running its course. That is logical, right? So these results will be accomplished at the end, when Jesus returns. This will be the last slide for this video. So look at the state of affairs. This is also the last point of C2. The state of affairs is the 69 weeks, being 7 plus 62, have already passed. It started with the decree of Cyrus in 466 BC, and it was confirmed by the prophecy of Isaiah, even 150 years before the birth of Cyrus even. And it ended, the 69 weeks ended at the anointing of Jesus as Messiah and King in 26 AD. The 70th week would have been from 26 AD to 33 AD, but it did not happen retrospectively. Reason: Israel rejected her Messiah. So the final 70th week is still in the future. See my study in chronology of importance. It's very important regarding the assumptions that are used. Thank you very much for your presence in this video, and I will see you next time. Until then.